myself to the whole idea of sport. I understand the obscura is my point. It's the unknown, the hidden, the unseen. And I'm going to run you through a little bit what I do as a sports manager. If you have anything after my conversation, I'll be happy to answer questions. Okay.
The little master. Everyone wants him to do well. The atmosphere is unbelievable and electric here.
Okay, the reason I showed you that slide is just to basically give you a little bit of context of where we are coming from. While all of you will enjoy and watch the entertainment on that field and shout Sachin, Sachin, so on and so forth, it's this roar, the whole of India keeps shouting, but you have to understand where we come from as managers, right? This is the part that we look at. We sit in silence. There's an empty boardroom the night before the critical choice. Welcome to the unseen spaces of journey. The reason I say this, it's very rare that you actually see us at cricket matches. While this roar is going on, you all are getting entertained. We are sitting and thinking what our next move will be when it comes to the players. So I'm just going to run you through my journey. It's a very simple one. I finished college in 1993, so I'm fairly old. I, like a lot of others, was not sure what to do going forward. I decided advertising was my key opportunity. I landed up in Ogilvy and Mehta, in those days called Ogilvy One Worldwide. And I walked in, I met the head of them, and I asked them for a job. I said, I'm free, I finished college, can I get a job? And they said, Vinod, why don't you come tomorrow? Of course, they knew me because my brother also worked for them, and I got a job. But then came 1998, and I still remember the date, it was January 25th. I love sport. I was at an event, it was the first year anniversary of Asian Age, and they had a big party. I landed up at that party, and I met one Mr., I don't know if you all know him, one Mr. Mark Mascarenas, who actually brought world sport to this country. He brought the World Cup in 1996, right? And I met him, and Mark asked me a simple question. He said, Vinod, what are you doing here? I said, it's the same thing you're doing here, is having a drink and having dinner. But I said, Mark, if you give me a chance, I'll come and work for you. That was 25th of January. 26th of January, he called me up. He interviewed me and gave me a job as a sports manager. Did I know anything about it? Absolutely none. Okay, I didn't even know what it meant. But I joined him because of my love for the sport. And I always believe if you love something, you have a passion for it. It works wonderfully well. I worked with him right up till 2006. Unfortunately, Mark died in a car crash in 2002, January. And the mantle of managing one Mr. Sachin Tendulkar fell solely on my shoulders. It was interesting. The journey was great. It was wonderful. Sachin and myself had a relationship since 1998. But the important part was that was a very, very big part of what I took on to manage someone as large as him. And if you remember, Sachin was Sachin, and he's the greatest cricketer the world has seen. I then, in 2006, my contract with World Sport Group in WorldTel got over. I then went to another management company called World Sport Group. I went there and again asked them the same thing. I said, I have a great man by the name of Tendulkar with me. We want to move together as a party. And they offered us a job. We worked 10 years with World Sport Group. What was interesting at this time was the same time that the IPL came up. So I was involved in the rights. When the rights were bought, at that time in 2007-8, I was also involved in the IPL sponsorship. So a lot of the sponsorship came in from people like us. And that's where I got my grounding into the larger part of the sports business. Not only the player management business, but also the business of sponsorship. And in 2014, I moved out. Sachin wanted to do his own business and run his own office. I needed a larger canvas to work on. So I joined and started a company called New Start. I called it New Start in those days because it was a new company, but now we are 11 years down the line, it's still called New Start, right? Okay. The real journey happens in silence, doubt, and uncertainty. And this is something you all must remember. A lot of what you all do, or for that matter, when you manage people like we do, celebrities and stuff like that, there's only one person who's a celebrity, and that's the entertainer. You have to be in the background, and your journey is one in silence and doubt. I mean, you do not know what your next step is going to be. So this is how the understanding starts with. It first starts with the individual, family, and friends. Now, what do I mean by the understanding? You've got to understand the player. You've got to understand what makes him tick, what works for him, what does not work for him, the meaning of his family to him. right? A lot of them are very closeted when it comes to their family. They keep their family in the background. They don't want people to come there because there's a lot of media attention on them. They don't want their families to get involved with that. So you need to understand that part of their life. In addition to that, they have a whole bunch of friends. Now, you have to understand how their friends work, how they approve. Are they friends who say yes to everything they say? Or are these the kind of friends who will wrap them on their wrists and say, guys, you're wrong, even however big he is as a celebrity. The next part is understanding the vision. When I say understanding the vision, like all of us in companies and when we go to jobs, we have a vision as to what we want to accomplish in life. The two parts of the accomplishment. One is, what do you want to achieve as a business person? Or as a person working in a company or a corporation, how far you want to go. From an athlete's perspective, their duration of their sport or their ability is very short-lived. It could be 5 years, it could be 10 years, it could be 15 years, but that's how far it goes. So one of the key attributes of what they do is, while their vision has a lot of other things, like the number of days they have and how to manage their family and stuff, they also look at how to monetize that particular part of their lives. And that's when, I do not know how many of you all have seen this movie called Jerry Maguire. It's a movie about an agent, and the first thing the athlete asks him is, show me the money. How much of money am I going to make? And that's where the pressure starts to build. So you've got to understand that vision. And the third point is constructing the road ahead. If you were to get to that vision, what do I need to do? And what are the steps I need to take going forward? Right? Now, this is one part of obscura. And you all must understand this. A lot of us go through it. And a lot of people say the higher you go up in the corporate ladder, this is something that you face. Well, we face it in the business starting from the beginning because there's no precedent. So if you look at the loneliness of decision making, the first part is an MG. So when a player comes to you, he turns around and says, I want to earn X amount of money. Now you have to understand that if you do not make that amount of money for him by the end of the year, you have to put your hand in your back pocket and pay that amount, the differential amount. So the fear of that money actually being available to him is something that's the risk you take. And it's a very, very big risk. That's the reason why people like me have worked in corporations that allow you to work as an individual. At the same time, if you get to a situation like this, they help you to bear that pressure. The second part is setbacks to success. There are a lot of issues that happen with success. Now, if you look at sports personalities, an injury could stop them from working in their business for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. A company can go bad, right? So you do a sponsorship deal, the company goes bad, what do? Government. I don't know if you remember last year, government put a stop on online gaming. I don't know how many of you all play online games. Now, if you play online games, the government put real money online games off. And one of the sponsors that we worked with is a company called My 11 Circle. It was probably my biggest client. But it was a Thursday, cabinet took a decision. It went to the Lok Sabha, went to the Rajya Sabha, in law, gaming, online gaming gone. So suddenly you get to a space where that money is not available anymore in sponsorship. That's why if you look at this time's IPL, My 11 Circle or Dream 11 is not part of the setup, right? They have new sponsors. If you look at critical outcomes, this is a very, very important part of it. Now the decisions you make, crucial decisions on an athlete's career, when the outcome is never fully certain. You are not sure. I mean, tomorrow a decision that you make with your player or your athlete for discussion purpose, should he be playing the IPL or should he go to England and practice because there's an event coming up in the next 3 months? That's the decision you need to take. Does the player need to take rest at this point in time because he's overworked himself? And will that affect his career going forward? And now you look at it from an athlete perspective. He's thinking if he doesn't play for the next 3 months and someone else replaces him, and if they do well, his place is in jeopardy. So these are decisions that you need to make along the way. And these decisions are simple decisions, but you have to remember one thing, they can affect the career very, very, very badly. And the last one is data versus gut. Today, because of the world we live in, there's a lot of big data that keeps coming through. Now, fortunately, unfortunately, a lot of the decisions we take are gut, right? And I'll give you a simple example of this. I mean, it's quite interesting. There was a time frame when, if you remember, this whole ad which said, "Boost is the secret of my energy." And what we did one day was, we wanted to figure out whether if I put the face of a cricketer on the packaging, will the sales increase? And the player was not interested. Simple reasons, the packaging is not treated nicely, it's thrown in the dustbin, so on and so forth. There were a lot of those kind of issues that came up. But we did put the image on the packaging. And what happened was, there was incremental sales. And why was it incremental sales? It was a kid walked into the store, and he could point and say, "Mama, I want that bottle." And all he was saying it is because he saw an image of a personality on it. And those are gut feelings that we have. We don't have data to think. Today we have data, and the days we started off, I'm talking about 1998, 99, that data was not available to us, right? So that is something that we have to look into. Okay, this is another point of obscura, the cost of evolution. Chartering a course which has no precedent. Now, you have to remember when I started in this business way back in 1998, there were no precedents set. There was no contracts that were done in a manner that safeguarded the players. So we had to learn through experience, right? We had to go through this whole process to figure out what are the best practices and the checks and balances we need to have to actually create this opportunity, right? I still remember in the first IPL, one of the things we looked at, which was quite interesting, while the contract was there between the franchisee or the team, like RCB and the player, my concern was very simple. My concern is what happens if RCB doesn't pay the player at the end of the event? So what did we do? We went back and we said the BCCI would stand surety for that. But it's all evolving. We had no clue at that point in time, but we went through that process and we created processes going forward, which still survive, by the way, a lot of them. We have every issue is taken personally. Now you've got to understand why this happens. You get so close to the individual that every problem that he faces, you will go through the same problem. If he's injured, you will feel the same problem. And you need to figure out how you can manage that situation, right? I remember there were players who, while I was growing up working with them, had an injury, and their concern was they would never play the sport again. And I would go back to them and say, forget if you don't play the sport, but just think of what you have achieved to date. How many people will ever achieve that? So forget you not playing, but just think how many people would not achieve what you have done and the legacy you have created. And that's how we used to work with them. But you have to understand that every issue they go through becomes very, very personal to you. Arrogance versus confidence, the reason I put it in color, we have to all remember it is a problem that we all face. The reason being, the moment you start to manage celebrities, both whether it's Bollywood, whether it's athletes, we start to, in a lot of ways, believe that we are bigger or as big as the celebrity. We start to throw our weight around. We go into negotiations saying it's my way or the highway. The issue is very, very simple. The moment you cross the line of confidence, you move into arrogance. Stick with confidence. Let the client believe in you. Let the athlete believe in you. Let them create something that's a win-win for both parties. But never ever walk into the room behaving that you are as big as a celebrity and you will behave in a manner that is take it or leave it, right? Go in there so that you can build relationships, but not get to a point where the guy turns around and says, I don't really want to deal with him, but I have to do the deal. Evolution of sports business is the only constant. That's a fact. I mean, if you look at it, any sport today, it keeps changing. Formats keep changing, whether it was Test cricket to one-day cricket to T20. Football has changed. You have futsal coming up. Kabaddi has become different. It's corporatized. The format of the game has changed. So you have to evolve as and when the sport evolves. B is the fact sponsors evolve. If you look at the old days, you had the DLFs of the world that were sponsors. Then you had the Pepsis and the Cokes who were the sponsors. Then you had the Vivos and the Samsungs and the Nokias who were sponsors. But as and when the years go by, the sponsors start to change. And you got to evolve with that part of it because you got to attract more and more sponsors. And the last part is family. You have to understand this in the business we go through, the family really takes a backseat. And it is sad because there are times I would travel for 50 days on a tour. And my son, who was literally that small, it was struggle. Every time I came back, he was different. He had changed. He had started to walk one day, and I had not been able to see that. So you have to ensure that you don't affect the family dynamics. This is something that's interesting. We have what we call outgrowing identities, right? Now, if you look at that growth of an athlete, the discomfort of shedding old skin to become who they need to be. You look at Sachin on the left-hand side as a child. That's a famous photograph that we use of him. And then him winning a World Cup. His expectations change. His story in life changes. He starts as a 15-year-old. He then matures and gets to his peak at the age of 34, 35. And then he plays till 40 when he starts to plateau. And then it's not that he goes downwards, but according to his personality, he's not as good as he was 3 years or 4 years back. You've got to manage that process. At the same time, as a sports manager, you go to 3 phases of life. An athlete manager is very simple. You manage his schedules, you manage his shoot dates. You become concierge service to him. Right? He calls up and says, I want a ticket, you get it done. But it's nothing that is very complicated. You get to the second part where there's a strategist. Now you're thinking whether I have to go out and get a deal. Short term versus long term, money is involved, valuations involved. So you start to become a strategist for him and you protect what you want from him. And the last part, you become a brand steward. Now you have to remember that's the gatekeeper. You will not allow anything to get to him unless it goes through you. And that is the biggest part of it. And that's when you've really evolved to a point where you're controlling the brand in itself. But you have to understand that brand is also connected to how he performs or you perform and stuff like that. But that becomes a critical part to it, the brand steward part of it. Clarity doesn't come before the journey, it comes through it. So if you look at the first part, I'm talking about building a process that validates the decision. Every decision that you take, I mean, in corporate life or going forward, whether it's sports management, whether it's entertainment, whether it's computer science, all of you all being engineers and stuff like that, civil engineering or whatever it is. Immediate importance is processes. Validate a process. Make sure you know what that process is. Make sure you're going by that process, because what stands for you in life is a good process, and that never changes. Please do not rush a decision. We have made mistakes. I have made tons of mistakes rushing a decision, right? Chasing good money versus bad money, and when we have more time than the 20 minutes you get here, I'll probably be able to explain it. But never rush a decision. Make the right decision and take as much time as you need to. And lastly, staying the course. This is exactly where we have a problem. We flit between one and the other, especially when we're athlete managers. It's very easy to move from one player to the other, one event to the other, without really staying the course. We need to focus, ensure you keep that focus going and run with it as long as you need to. The unseen struggles are what shape the visible success to us, right? So staying grounded, and I remember this, the first time I met a particular superstar, and I asked him the same question. I said, how do you want me to manage you? And he said, Vinod, do me a favor, manage me the way I would manage another person. I don't want you banging tables. I don't want you to be arrogant. I just want you to do exactly the way I do. And I learned from that day, and it stuck with me till date. I respected what he said, and till date, that was my first person I managed. And when he said this, till date, I still go by that tenet. I believe that if you could manage him the way he would manage someone else, right, or his connections with someone else, you'll run it properly. So stay grounded as much as you can. The last one is embracing ambiguity. Please understand, in ambiguity always comes out some form of success at the end of the table, because you keep going through ambiguity right through our process that we go through, right? Whether it's a good product, a bad product, whether it's the right creative control you have, whether it's bad creative control you have. But if you keep going through those steps, ultimately, out of ambiguity, you will get the right answer, right? So please go through that process. Do not cut short that process. And I just have 2 more slides. This one is important. If you are in the obscura right now, stay, navigate. That's where your story is being written, right? And this is my last slide, and I stick by these 2 words, and I'm going to explain it to you. This is my alma mater, St. Joseph's Boys High School. If you read that motto at the bottom, it said, Fida et labore. And what does it mean? It means exactly what I've been saying to you. There are 2 words it means, faith and it means toil. If you have faith in what you do and conviction into how to grow yourself, and you toil towards it, you will achieve whatever you set out to do. And thank you very much for giving me a hearing.